Hey, everybody, welcome to Spill the Novelty, where three girlies shout into the void about our latest book, hot takes, and obsessions. I'm Abby,
I'm Maddie.
And I'm Kaylee.
and this week we tried to read the Book of Asriel and all decided to DNF it. So instead, we're doing an impromptu episode on what makes us DNF a book, just letting out our hater energy. So if you're a regular DNFer, or if, like us, you've been kind of working up the courage to finally DNF without guilt, you can do it. Here's the tea. Be free. Be free.
All right. So basically, we're just each going to state something that makes us DNF. So I'll go first with my first one. So it is bad dialogue. Bad dialogue absolutely will make me DNF a book, even though I'm not. Okay, I should rephrase. So I'm not a hardcore DNFer. Like, it takes a lot to get me to DNF a book. But bad dialogue is something that'll make me want to DNF a book. So like Book of Asriel, the dialogue was I hate to be a hater, but the dialogue was laughable. Like, it was so cringe. And another example is any Colleen Hoover book, which I would probably get a lot of hate for saying that. But Colleen Hoover, I don't think has ever spoken to another human in her entire life. I really don't.
It's like
I hate to say it. I really do. But when I read her dialogue, I'm like, people don't talk like this. Like, no. People do not talk like this.
They don't.
No.
They
and in like Book of Asriel, it was like 2 times in the first like 4 pages she said, "Ah, yes." And I'm like, I've never heard someone say that in real life, much less said it myself. Like, this is just not how people speak to each other. Like, even when you have like a superiority thing to whoever you're talking to, you don't go, "Ah, yes." Like, it's just, it takes you right out of it.
I feel like it's either she wrote really
out
formal,
she wrote out a lot. She wrote out, people would say I'm like, I thought that was funny.
Okay, another tiny example of this is in was it One Dark Window, where, you know, every fantasy author feels like they have to create this unique like curses and stuff like that, and they said trees as a curse.
Trees,
bro,
the trees
grow up.
Me.
That was so stupid.
Oh, trees.
It's like we don't have to do it.
We don't.
Yeah, straight up. And I feel like too, with bad dialogue, I feel like it's either, or a lot of times it's in one of two camps. It's either like too formal, like what you said with like yes, or whatever it was, and then it's either that, or like with Colleen Hoover's dialogue, it's like very childish. It just like is not the way that adults would talk to each other. So it's like, it's either super formal or it's just way too silly, like too much of a silly, goofy mood.
Yeah. It's just cringe, like
cringe. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think too, with like funny dialogue, like there's so many, you know, we've been on the Emily Henry hype train for the last however many episodes now. We're about to be on it again. But I think with her, like, she knows how to do funny and cutesy kind of dialogue. That's just so fun. So I don't know. There's you can definitely get it right and be cute and be silly. Or you can just be bad at it.
Yeah.
In which case we're like, we're done.
Yeah.
We're done.
And someone that does dialogue really well is, I know, Matt, you might not agree with this, but I think Sarah J. Maas actually does dialogue really well. And it's like, it's a balance of being like bantery and funny, and like still being how normal people talk like every day. So
yeah, I don't disagree with you. My problem with Sarah J. Maas is not her dialogue. So I think her dialogue is fine. I think her characters...
Yeah.
Dot.
Like drop.
But yeah, I would agree with the dialogue though. Like, I don't think that. Yeah, I think that she's pretty consistent with that.
Yeah. Also, Casey. How do you say it?
McQuiston,
right? I always say McWizician. I don't know why, but like that's just
McWizard.
Yeah, like, you know, the thing where your brain reads like the first letter and the last letter and just fills in the middle. Like, that's what I do with her.
Yeah.
But anyway, her dialogue is really, really good, and it just really feels like you're just in the room listening to it, and like it's just natural. And I don't know how people are proofreading their work and not noticing that it feels so stiff and weird, because like when I write dialogue that's stiff and weird, I literally can't move on. I'm like, ew, what have I done here? Ugh. Like, this feels weird and gross. Like, ugh.
The cringe.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Instant L.
have cheesy dialogue on my list as well. Particularly cheesy dialogue that's supposed to be funny but is just corny. And I think a really good example of this for me was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. The whole book, just from start to finish, was just corn after corn after corn after corn, and like moments that were supposed to be cute but were really just like stupid, and conversations that were just bizarre to think about like actually happening. So yeah, dialogue is rough.
Yeah, I also hate to be like, as a side note to A Good Girl's Guide to Murder too, like I hate to be a hater to shit on people's fun, because I know a lot of people love this series, but I'm also like, guys, have y'all, there's so many good mysteries out there.
Yeah.
There's so many good
Yeah.
thrillers. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it's very predictable and stuff too, which I should have added that on here of like when something's really predictable. That could be a side note. But yeah, no, Crint, very much cheesy dialogue that was just
that book
not,
was very, the
not
whole
worth
thing
it.
was cheesy. And I think if I had to guess why people like it, is they probably like that it's not like a pretentious thriller, because some of them
Sure,
do feel a
that's
little
true.
bit pretentious, and that one feels a
Yeah.
little bit more relatable. But
Yeah.
I did not enjoy that book. It was not for me.
No.
Yep.
I
Agreed.
even broke like book girly etiquette because one of my friends, I guess, was reading it, and I saw her Goodreads review pop up as 5 stars, and I messaged her and I said, Taylor, we need to get you into some better books. Why did you rate this 5 stars? And like normally I'm not that girl, because like enjoy what you enjoy, but I was like, no, I need to save this girl. Like she
must
cannot
free her.
think this is the peak of literary fiction. Like, no.
Yeah.
It's okay. I'll be the first to admit on this pod that, and Kaylee knows this, that I enjoyed Verity when I read it initially, because that's when I was getting back into reading. And so I was just like excited to have anything that was like exciting at all, you know, like thrillers or anything like that. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, no, this is really not it. And thank God Kayla was kind of like, really?
Really? We talked about it, and I was
sure?
trying so hard to be nice about it. I was like, you like this book? Like,
yeah,
really
she was being sweet about it. She's like, oh, really? I didn't really get into it. Translated to, that was some shit, dude.
That was some
like,
bad content.
Yeah.
It was the dialogue. But it ends with us has so much worse dialogue than Verity.
I've never tried it, but I've
only read like
you.
some excerpts from Colleen Hoover, and they're so bad and weird. I'm like, how is she so popular? I do not understand. Like, the mainstream reader is like a vexing person to me. Like, I don't understand what they look for. Granted, I am like full to one side. Like, I expect the utmost from books and content. So I get that, like, I'm a weird niche reader, but like, it just baffles me what is so mainstream and popular. I'm like, how?
And I think people too will say, you know, like anytime you have a criticism like that, too, people will be like, you know, let people like what they like, which sure, yeah, but also fine. There's so many books out there, and I think part of it's too just like I'm curious of how these books get popular and continue to be like popularized, because we love reading for enjoyment. We've talked about this, just for fun, you know, just to have a good time. It doesn't all have to be like peak writing, but it has to be fun and enjoyable. And there's just so many other good chill options. You know, you don't have to be reading something super formal, but
if the
something better
dialogue
than
actively makes me come out of the book story and be like, would someone really say that? That's how I know it's like not for me. But like, I'm very much here for like reading what's popular, because I'm very much like other girls. Like I like to read what the girlies are reading. You know what I mean? For sure.
Yeah.
But there are some books like A Good Girl's Guide to Murder and Colleen Hoover books that I'm just like, no, not for me.
I don't get it.
It's more like girly to girly. Yeah. Ladies.
Yeah.
Let's do better by ourselves, okay? It's not because we can't enjoy things. It's just there's so many other better ones. So many.
That's what I think it is too, is like and I might get hate for this, but like, for example, when I was a young teen, okay, I was reading Twilight like everyone else, and I thought it was the best thing that had ever been written. Like, I thought she was up there with Shakespeare, okay? And then I read The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. And I physically felt like the brain chemistry changed in my brain, because I was like, oh, like this is this book is evoking something in me. Like, this is what a book should be and do. And, like, literally from that point forward, like, I've looked at books differently and I've felt differently about books. And I think people that have just gotten into reading, like, especially as adults, like, after college or whatever, and, like, Colleen Hoover is their first thing, they're like, this is the best thing I've ever read. And it's probably true, you know?
That's okay.
It probably is the best thing
we
they've
gotta
ever
move
read.
on from it. Yeah. We gotta
like,
grow. We gotta grow from it.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know?
Broaden our horizons.
I just admitted my coho moment. So like we all grow up from it, okay? We just have to be willing to explore a little bit.
Yeah.
Just gotta be willing. You know, I'm gonna continue the dialogue theme here. I wasn't gonna mention this one first, but since we're on this route, originally my honorable mention was going to be silly repeated little one-liners that characters have. We've talked about this a million times. I don't know if I've actually ever fully DNF'd a book because of this, but I have considered it.
Yeah.
This just goes with the cheesy dialogue. A book that we really did like that has a example of this though was Serpent in the Wings of Night, with the whole like there she is thing. Again, I did not DNF. I like that series, but it does annoy me. Like you said,
really
Kaylee, if it takes me out of the story, then I start to get annoyed. So let's cut the little one-liners once or twice. Yeah. That's all we need.
It really
and Book of Az starts to do that too with Pinky Promise. I don't know if you got to that part, Abby, if you read that far, but I read like half this book, more than half this book, and they start to do like Pinky Promise, and I'm like, oh, gag.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I don't know if I got to that part. I kind of blacked out by the time I was wrapping it up, but that's oof. That's cringy.
It's unfortunate because there are so many examples of it being done really well. So like Real or Not Real, okay, from the Hunger Games is a sleigh. True. And it makes sense in context of the character because literally he doesn't know. And,
right.
You know, I think Harry Potter also has the one from Snape.
Always.
Yeah, there we go. So like people have just been trying to like recreate those vibes.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work. Does Twilight have one? I feel like Twilight actually doesn't have one. Am I tripping?
I feel like it does for some reason. I feel like it does, but
apparently not iconic enough because yikes.
I would.
It's something about forever or something.
Oh, yeah, is it forever?
Something. Yeah, there's something about
there is one, but yeah, I don't remember what it is. Something like that.
But yeah, people just like overuse it to really get it across that like this is the phrase, and it's just, you know, let it.
I think if it's used like 2 or 3 times max.
Yeah,
I think it'll be a good phrase.
Yeah,
right. And like you said, Maddie, particularly with the Hunger Games, like I do love that one because it makes sense for the context. Like it's a personal thing that also makes sense with what's going on. It's not this just like very random cheesy thing.
Yeah. And honestly, like I don't think every relationship needs to have one. Like I think I don't know. People need to stop trying to include them in every single series every single time because it's just like I don't know. Like me and my partner don't have like a phrase. Like it's like almost like a safe word, you know? Like we don't have like a phrase that's like I'm overflowing.
We don't have
love.
a catchphrase.
Like, love you. You know? Yeah. Like, it's okay.
We have like a million names for our cat and we joke about others. We have memes that we love, but we don't have like maybe that's what we need, you know? They need to go to a meme format. Maybe I would like it better.
Yeah, because we definitely have like a language, like you said, like memes.
Yeah, we have like or like a bit,
and
you know?
Bits.
We love a good bit, but that's not what's going on here. It's this very just dramatic one-liner. It's like
so dramatic, so dramatic.
Okay.
All right, I'll go for my next one. So my next one is info dumping. I think we can all agree that too much info dumping will make us quit reading a book. I was just sitting here looking for an example in Book of Asriel, and it's like on every page, so I'm not even going to bother. It's literally on every page. Basically, it's like when a character is like talking. The dialogue ones kill me the most. So it's like when a character's talking, and they randomly start throwing in like background information that both of the characters already know.
Yeah.
Just so the audience knows it too. That kills me because it's like I would not be talking to you guys and be like,
Right.
I don't know. I can't even think of an example. But I wouldn't be talking to you guys and randomly throw in background information about our conversation. We would just talk about it, you know? And so info dumping, yeah, it kills me.
My job, which, as you know, I got 6 months ago, and I was hired at this place to do X thing, and I feel this way about it, but blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
It's very as you know. Yeah, exactly.
I think, like... Sorry, Abby, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, like, and this is always such a delicate balance, too, particularly with fantasies, because, so you have info dumping and conversation, but then also, of course, to do all your world building, and, like, I get that there's a degree of necessity, but it's all about, like, you know, what kind of balance you strike with. All right, you know, I need to immerse you in this world and also not make you bored to death and overload you so that you can't remember a single name or anything. But
yeah. And I think a place where you see this particularly commonly is like the second and third books in a series. Even if the first book they don't do this, the beginning of the second and third book, I don't know why they are forced to do this or why they feel like they need to do this, but they have to recap the whole first book in the beginning, like, chapter, and they're always like, as I stand atop the pillar, I think about, you know, how 6 months ago I was just a normal girl, and now I have all these superpowers, and I have this weight on my shoulder, and I'm like, I finished the first book 12 minutes ago. I don't need you to tell me that, okay? I don't need this. Like, are we really just, why are we assuming the people haven't read the first book? I don't understand. I don't get it.
Well, and I like the little recap, but again, it's all about how it's done and, like, if it's balanced, right? Because, like, if it's, so, you know, a series book that I read, you know, 2 years ago, and then I'm wanting to pick up book 3, I don't necessarily want to have to do a full reread. So I like enough of a little recap, but especially when it gets into things like their emotions and stuff like that, or even like you were saying with dialogue, Kaylee, like, and they're kind of like talking about how they feel or like blah, blah, blah. Like, it's too much, you know? It's a balance. It's a balance. I like a little recap, but not a, like, throw the entire, you know, give me a couple, maybe a page. I don't need.
As far as recaps, I like a little bit of it. Yeah, like Abby's saying, I like a little bit of one because, like, for example, I read Ninth House, and a lot happens in Ninth House, and I wasn't sure. I was like we talked about in another episode, I wasn't like 100% into Ninth House, but I kind of wanted to read the second book just to see if it, like, gets better and if anything interesting happens with the characters. So I picked it up, tried reading it, and I couldn't remember anything that happened in Ninth House, and so I couldn't get into the story because it, like, there was no background information or anything. It just, like, started. And I guess that's how it's kind of supposed to happen. But, like, I couldn't figure out the context, basically, is what I'm saying. So I put it down and said, maybe I'll try again after I reread Ninth House. But
it might be a personal preference thing. Because, like, so when I was, I don't know, probably like 20, my mom brought me home a book from a yard sale because she's a yard sale girly. And I just, like, started reading it. She was like, it's fantasy. And I was like, thank you. That is all I need to know. I started reading it. And I was like, there were things that were happening. There were characters that were meeting that had history. And I was like, what is going on? Like, ooh, tea. Like, but it felt fun because I was like, I kind of don't know what's going on, but I want to know. And I finished it. I really liked it. And then I went to go buy the next book in the series. And I realized I had read book 2. Instead of, like, she had just bought it at a yard sale, so she didn't know. And so I had read the second book, and so then I went back and read the first book. But it was like, I don't know, it was fun to kind of be on the foot of, like, there's something about it that makes me really feel like I'm watching something happen versus I'm being told, because there's an element, if it's done right, of confusion that, like, keeps you engaged in the story and, like, ooh, what's going to happen?
You're working to figure it out. Yeah.
And you're like, ooh, why do these people have beef? Like, what's going on? Like, ooh, okay, there's lore here, you know? It's just kind of fun. But, yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. I guess it just depends on the story and the vibe.
Yeah.
Good point, good point.
That kind of brings me to my next thing, which is super slow plot movement, which I think info dumping is often responsible for. But even just when the story is kind of, like, slugging along and, like, not really going anywhere. I read Daughter of the Moon Goddess last year, which is, like, a very popular, very hyped book, but the beginning is so slow and, like, just kind of boring. Like, not a lot is going on. I almost DNF'd it. And also for me, the A Court of Wings and Ruin, my hot take, from the ACOTAR series, it was so fucking boring, bro. Like, that book just dragged for me, and like, I would have absolutely DNF'd it if I wasn't reading it for like a book club. Like, I was so over it. I was listening to it on like 3.5 times speed audiobook, just miserable. Like, the last 4 hours, just like playing balloons on my computer, just so over it.
Did you not like it because it was like a war book and you typically don't like those, or did you not like it because like there wasn't enough happening?
Yeah, I think part of it, war is a tough sell for me, which I know is like a me thing, because a lot of the times I'm more invested in character conflicts than big external conflicts like that. And the character conflict in that book is just really bad and stupid. Like, it's literally just Feyre doing whatever she wants, and then Rhysand going, "That's okay, honey, I still love you." And she's like, "Oh my god, he's so nice. I hate him this chapter, but next chapter I'm okay. And like, now I'm gonna be mad for like this contrived reason that doesn't make any sense. And then now I'm okay again." So it was just like, if the character conflict is lacking, then I just don't care. I just don't care.
I guess that's fair. I guess I like books with bigger conflict going on. Like, I like the war type books, like Priory, you know, is a good example. In the prequel to Priory, they've got like these massive wars happening, and that's a bigger part of the book than anything going on with the characters. And I like that. Like, I don't know. I like a lot of like context, I guess, is kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So
I will say that I think for Priory, yeah, absolutely, the biggest thing is the war and all the stuff with the kingdoms and everything. But like, I do think you get, as it builds, you get a lot of those, like, you know, character dynamics shifting and changing, and tension with like their situation and stuff too. So but yeah, the biggest point is the bigger scope of everything going on.
Yeah, I like it as like a supplement a lot, or even a primary, but like done a little bit more. I think I like it on a micro level. Like, I like a political intrigue kind of thing. So like the Cruel Prince series I love, because the romance is almost a supplement to like Jude trying to gain power in the system and like doing that, but it's done in like a very character focused way, where she's like playing with people rather than like pieces on a chessboard that's like, this battle's happening and this battle's happening and whatever. But yeah, I need to read Priory to see if that is done in a way that I will actually be able to digest, because I think I haven't read like a good war book before. So
I was gonna say too, for Daughter of the Moon Goddess, I really liked it, but I remember even in giving it a really good review, I did talk about the slow, like, it's definitely is slow. Now I think the thing that for me at least personally redeemed Daughter of the Moon Goddess for the slow moments is that you get, I think, just these very beautiful like descriptions, and it's very like scenic, and so it was just a really beautiful kind of world to be in. So I think for me, like, at that particular moment, I was in the mood for a more chill read, so I didn't mind it. But that's the thing too, is like, something I was going to talk about is, you know, I'm accepting being a mood reader for sure. There are times where I like a nice kind of slow, chill, pretty read. But if I'd be in my normal like fantasy, you know, action packed kind of mood, like, that book would have not been for me. So I think it definitely just depends on, you know, what else does it bring to the table? Like, in that case, it's a beautiful read, but also what mood am I in? In another mood, I might have said, nah, you know.
Yeah, and I think too, for me, like, a good example is The Hobbit. And like, Tolkien readers will admit this. This man will describe you everything in the scene, like, to the T. And it's just too much for me. And like, it's good writing, and like, I love it for him, but like, I don't need to know unless I need to know. So it's like, it slows down the plot for me to a point where it's like, I cannot proceed.
Yeah, hot take is that the Lord of the Rings series is kind of unbearable.
It is unbearable.
The movies are good. Really good. And because they're a lot faster pace, and you don't get all that, like, all of the unnecessary, like, the tree was green and had a whatever, I don't know.
Yeah.
But you don't get all that in the movie. So the story is great. But like The Hobbit, I read The Hobbit and I read the first book of Lord of the Rings. And the only reason I read those was so I could be like edgy and cool and be like, oh, I've read Lord of the Rings.
Right.
But if I wasn't reading it for that purpose, like, I can recognize that it's good writing. There's a lot of figurative language. It's beautiful. But as far as like wanting to read for the story and not the writing, it's like, no. It does not hit for me.
It does not hit. I need dumber fantasy, respectfully.
Same.
I can't.
Yeah. Yeah, the descriptiveness is the problem. Like, I get it. It's great stylistically, and yet I want to move on, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally. Yeah. I don't know. I think in my own writing, too, like, I failed to describe things. Like, if my book, like, if I could write it just the way that I want to, it would be, like, borderline only dialogue. And that's another thing that I look for. Like, when I open up a page of a book and there's like no dialogue, I'm like, whoa.
You're like,
yeah.
Good God. Like, what are we doing here? It's just so much. And I think honestly, like, even Iron Flame, I remember had like a good chunk of the book that was like a lot of just like, here's what we did today, here's this, here's this, here's this, here's this. And I was like, girl, I need a conversation, like something, throw me a bone.
Give me
please.
something. Yeah. Yeah.
So
that's a good point. Speaking of conversation and character perspectives, we have talked, I think, in different episodes about how much POV matters to us. And this is probably my biggest one, actually.
yeah.
I put bad POV switching, and this can come in many different forms. Too many POV jumps, too many different characters, cop-outs for revealing information by just switching POVs that no one asked for. All sorts of problems. If you know what I'm about to say. This throwback to God Killer. Here we are again. We did not need the little rat gods POV. We've discussed this. Like, we did not need it. There was too much going on. So, and again, I can do different POVs, like we've talked about at length, how much we love Priority, or at least me and Kaylee have really enjoyed it. And it switches POVs. And for the most part, I can think of like a POV that I didn't care as much for, but I like it. I like the switch. But yeah, if it's bad, it's bad.
Yeah.
Don't like it.
I think in 90% of circumstances, please God, only give me one POV. Like, I really do not need multiple POVs. I think there's like 5% that, okay, maybe 8% where 2 POVs is nice, and then 2% where more than 2 POVs is okay. And I think the only place that I've really liked that is Six of Crows. And part of that I will credit to, I was listening to the audiobook, and they have an individual narrator for each character. And there was a lot of effort put into like each character speaking differently. So like if you're going to do multiple POVs and they talk exactly the same way, red flag. I hate it. I can't stand it.
That's exactly what I put on my list, is when it doesn't change at all by the person you're reading. And so you have to look back and say, wait, who is this again? And you have to like go to the beginning of the chapter where it says the name of the person. Because like, for example, the Savage Land series, it's hard for me to recommend. I would recommend the first book, but then after that, it starts to go downhill. And by the 5th book, it becomes a 2-star read, because the POVs are written the exact same. The characters speak the same. They have the same inner thoughts. They have the same phrases that they repeat. And it's so lazy. I think that's lazy writing. Like, if you can't do a good POV shift, just don't do it. Don't do it. Stay to the one character that you're good at writing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and with Priority too, I think what I loved about it is that, so the POVs also just served a very specific purpose, right? Because I think all too often POVs, particularly with, you know, fantasies, romanticities that we love, unfortunately, I think a lot of times POVs are just like an easy way to reveal more about the main POV, right? So like, for example, if you normally have your female main character, and then maybe occasionally you switch to, you know, her love interest's POV just to reveal like how he sees her. It doesn't deserve, it does not for a distinct purpose, versus like priority. You know for sure why, it's this big war and things like that. You have your different sides that are completely unrelated for a long time, very distinct voices, very distinct religious beliefs, backgrounds, all this kind of stuff, and then it kind of converges. So that makes sense. But we don't need POVs just to reveal how the love interest feels about the main character. Like, it's just...
And if you really want to do a POV shift, or you want to do it for that reason that you're saying, Abby, my opinion is you should write like a novella or something from that other character's perspective. Like in the Shatter Me series, Tahira Mafi, I think that's her name, does that really well. Like, she writes side books that are optional to read, and they're from the dude's perspective.
Yeah.
I can't think of his name. That's why I'm saying the dude, but
Aaron Warner. Is that who it is?
Warner? Yeah, Aaron Warner. Yeah. They write from his perspective. So
I
like,
remember,
if you're interested in reading it, read it.
Yeah, there are a lot of tools to do it in a way that is better than switching POVs. Like, Iron Flame is a good example of this, doing it well and then doing it poorly. So like, doing it well, in my opinion, is like there's a moment where, because they can read each other's minds or communicate telepathically, because of course they can. That's not the do it well part. Don't yell at me, okay? But there's a moment where she slips into Xaden's head and then sees herself from his perspective. Great. Love that. Ate it up. Then at the end of the book, for no particular reason, we have a chapter of Xaden's POV. No one asked for that. I don't need that. I just need Xaden to tell Violet what happened. I just don't need it. And even stuff like that's more normal, like an overheard conversation, or like you won't believe what he said to me, or like a third character saying like, the way he looks at you is crazy. Like, I eat that stuff up. Like, it doesn't have to be a POV. Like, those little bits and bobs that are part of everyday life too, where it's like you have the conversation, you like have a crush on someone, and then like your friend is like, oh, I kind of see something between you two, and you're like, oh, I just don't, like, that's good food. That's good food. Just give us the good food.
Good soup. Yeah We just don't have to cop out with like the rat god does not need a POV.
No,
okay,
please, not the rat god. Anyone but the rat god, please.
He just doesn't. But yeah, big one for me. Big ick.
Yeah, I respect that.
Okay, I only have one more on my list. I think I went out of order here, but my last one, and this one isn't as much of a hot take because I think a lot of people would agree with this, but it's when there's an abusive relationship that's supposed to be romantic. And I can only think of one example of this, but it's like it's glorifying like abuse, and I don't mean physical abuse because that's more obvious, but I mean like emotional abuse. And the example that I can think of, and this is a hot take, is From Blood and Ash, because a lot of people love that book, but if you read it and you start to think like, what if this is kind of emotionally abusive, and then you like read it with that thought, I think a lot of people would see it differently, because it's like, it's not a healthy relationship at all, especially by the end. And I was not here for it. I did not like that book at all. Like, wasn't for me.
Okay, can I tell you? So, I'm still Iron Flame pilled, okay? But I was watching a show called Couples Therapy, and like, it's been getting a lot of clips on TikTok. And so I went and watched the show, and it's great. It's what it sounds like. It's couples going to therapy, and it's like all filmed and whatever. And one of the couples, the guy kept saying like, she kept saying like, you're lying to me, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, I am honest with you. You're just not asking the right questions. You asked me X and I answered Y and blah, 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 blah. And if you would have asked me Z, I would have told you blah, 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 blah. And I was like, poof, right back into Iron Flame, because that was like my issue is like, for the most part, I agreed with Xaden until he started saying that stuff. And I was like, that's gaslighting. And the therapist was like, talking to another, her like other counselor, supervisor, whatever. And she was like, he doesn't realize that like he's gaslighting her and like being emotionally abusive by saying she's not asking the right questions. So it's her fault that she's not getting the answers that she needs. And I was like, yes, that exactly. Like, this is not something that we should be, you know, looking up to him being like, Zayden's so mysterious and hot for that part. Like, he's problematic there, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, we don't need to co-sign on that, you know?
And I can deal with an imperfect character that's not meaning to do it, but from Blood and Ash, like, I won't spoil it because some people probably really want to read that book, but it's a lot more obvious than that. Like, it's a lot more, like, intentional, in my opinion, like, manipulative intentionally.
Yuck.
And so, I think it was just, I don't know. Y'all would have to read it, but I don't recommend.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Well, and we even talked about, now I'm going to forget the name of the book, one of the big ones on Book Talk right now that we didn't even touch because it's a very like problematic.
Haunting Adeline.
Yes.
Which which I know is like a more extreme example, but you know, I just I'm good. I'm good off that. Like
yeah.
I want to like a relationship because it's like it might have its flaws, but it's healthy.
Sure.
You know, I want to glorify a healthy relationship. I don't want to read about a stalker turned romantic interest.
You know, we all read Twilight.
I was just going to bring up Twilight and be like,
we all had our roots,
the best.
but when we were teenagers, it's different than now. Okay,
it's different.
And you know, at least if he's gonna be a weirdo, he can be like a hot vampire or something. Like you know, at least that. And then we grow up and we're like, you know, that's probably not the best behavior. It's not the healthiest dynamic. But was it fun to read then? Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun to read then.
because Jacob and Bella had a great dynamic too.
Yeah, he was never problematic or toxic or like forced himself on her. Like I don't know what you're talking about. It's just
and Bella was never mistreated him. Yeah,
and then dated
she
her
never
daughter.
Mistreated him either.
It's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Right. Yeah. This is normal stuff. Oh, right.
Yeah.
You know, side note when that happened.
Yeah, very unproblematic fave. It's okay.
I agree. I'm not gonna seek it out now. So.
We just spoiled Twilight, so we should have put a spoiler warning for anyone that wants to still read Twilight.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, like if you haven't read it, that's on you.
Don't read it.
That's on you.
That's on you.
You missed that, and I'm so sad that you did. But
yeah, it was a time to be alive. I was living my best life, but
you missed out big time.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
going to the midnight releases of the movies, like. Yeah.
Getting the pins. Oh my god. Okay, sorry, this is so off topic. Barnes and Noble throwback to like when they were like more relevant, but going to the midnight releases there, and then they have little parties and you get to pick the pin. And like I remember even for the Harry Potter release, it was like you got to pick a pin that was like I think Snape is good or Snape is bad or whatever, and it was like I don't know. It was just it's so cute.
That's so cute.
Yeah. That is cute.
And like Team Edward, Team Jacob kind of stuff, and like you got to vote and talk with people. Community.
I want to go to a midnight release. They've been bringing some of them back for books, so really? I need to. Yeah. I think
they did one for Iron Flame. They just did one for Crescent City Book 3, whatever.
Yeah, so they've been bringing them back. So
I love that.
Yeah, I gotta go. To one.
Okay, so my next thing is super pretentious prose. So this stems from PTSD from being an English major in college, okay? Because the amount of bad peer writing that I had to read, please forgive me, my dog is scratching. The amount of bad writing that I had to read from especially like 20-year-old boys that really felt like their emotional experience they were going through was like the most visceral thing that's ever happened to anyone. Like, I just wanted to perish. Like, it was just so, brother, we've all been sad. And, like, I know this is your first time naming an emotion because your frontal lobe is starting to develop, but, like, it's not that deep. And if you have to write the book in a way to overtly tell me that you're being deep and you're being profound, you're missing the mark. You shouldn't have to write it that way for me to feel it that way. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Me as a Perks of Being a Wallflower girly growing up, like
yes.
Oh, I loved Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Yes.
I did too.
Looking for Alaska.
Oh yeah.
Loved it.
Yeah. Me like, oh, these art boys are so pretentious. Meanwhile, in high school, I was listening to Lana Del Rey, looking out the window, reading Perks of Being a Wallflower with my tea. It's just like, you know, she wasn't like the other girls. But yeah, no, I agree. Like, especially for stuff now, it's like, I'm not in class. I'm here to have fun.
Yeah.
Now,
Catcher in the Rye is
but...
another one. I thought it was like super edgy and cool because I really loved Catcher in the Rye when in reality I didn't understand what the hype was, and I still don't understand what the hype was about that book, but
yeah. That's because
I thought I was like, I just thought I was so cool for reading.
Yeah, she's a phony.
Because I'm
she's
what?
a phony.
His whole stupid thing, yeah.
I really liked Catcher in the Rye, but because he, like, I enjoyed laughing at him, but then it was like every man in that class that was reading it was like, he just is me and I get him so much, and I was like, oh.
And you're like,
ooh.
oh.
You didn't get it. Ooh.
Red flag.
Right, like, I like the way that I don't know, it was easy to read in that it was just kind of like very straightforward. But yeah, when people start relating to him, I'm like, oh like, no, we have missed the point.
We saw the same thing with the latest Hunger Games book. What was it? Songbirds?
Songbird.
A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Yeah.
There's so many people I've seen come out of there and be like, oh, I just get it. Like, I understand him. I am him. And I'm like, that's not the point. That's not the point. That's not the point.
Run immediately.
Run.
Yeah.
Run for the trees, baby. Please don't be him. Yeah.
But my biggest example for this is The Midnight Library, which I fully hate read. Like, I cannot stand this book. I don't know how people get through it. And part of it is because the main character has like her doctorate in philosophy or something. And so she's just be thinking a lot. But then the other part of it is like, you're getting she's going through these lessons to learn the most basic concepts of philosophy, and I'm like, we have our doctorate. Like, why is this character mansplaining to my main character about philosophy? And then she's like, wow, I'm learning that happiness is more than like a surface level concept for the very first time. What was your where did you get your doctorate from?
Yeah,
did you pay $20 for it? Like, what's happening? It was so fake deep.
Like, I could have watched this on Crash Course.
Literally. Literally.
I liked Midnight Library, but I can understand why people don't like it. So, but I don't think the character was supposed to be likable. So I guess I read it differently than you did, Maddie. I don't think she was supposed to be likable or relatable in any way.
Then it was a good right, because I could not stand Nora. Every time I hear the name Nora, I get PTSD. Oh, can't.
I DNF that one, genuinely DNF that one, and I can't remember a thing about it because I just, for whatever reason, was like, I'm out. For that reason, I'm out. Okay, so I didn't have an example of this one. I'm sure I know them, but I just can't remember. So I was going to say too many plot holes. Again, this is probably more for stuff like, like Good Girl's Guide to Murder and stuff like that, which I understand is meant to be fun. Like, we're not being Sherlock Holmes here. Like, I get that. But if it's, I guess another way of putting this is if it's super predictable, that kind of thing. Like, if you can just guess where it's going, there's too many things that don't make sense. It's disconnected. I'm just like, all right.
Or when you really feel that choice the author made to do something that's super unexpected, but it's so unexpected that it doesn't make sense.
Right, it's a little too...
You. Yeah, the twist is too twisted.
Yeah, it was like, now we've forgotten the plot here. We've gone a little off script.
A good example of plot holes, but I can't think of one.
I don't know if this is really a plot hole, but it reminds me of like in the Harry Potter series where it's like every book they kind of find like a cool magical artifact that the book kind of like revolves around. So like the time turner. And then they never bring it up again and never use it again, even in situations where it would be really helpful. And so it's like all that knowledge just like it was just for one book kind of a thing. That feels plot holey to me.
Too many side quests. I love a side quest, but maybe if it's just, I guess the theme of this is being disconnected. Like there's just, it's off, it's predictable, it's disconnected. So yeah. I'm sure there's other ones that'll come to mind too, but I know that I've run into that in different ways. So
yeah,
that's one for me.
Yeah. T. Okay. You did all yours, didn't you, Kaylee?
I did.
Okay. So we're to my honorable mention, which if you've listened to our episodes, you already know this about me. I am on the last toe with fairy tale retellings. if someone does not show me a fairy tale retelling that is even tolerable, I'm over it. The second I get a sniff of Cinderella or Sleeping Beauty or Beauty and the Beast, I'm setting it down. I'm so tired of it. I've never read a book where it's like actually necessary to the plot. It's literally just like this crutch that people lean on to have a jumping off point, because like the start of the book and setting up world building is the hardest part, and I totally get it. But like, write it for the first draft and then write it out. You don't need it. I hate it. It's so stupid. I get so mad. Dude, and like ACOTAR, totally, I was so confused about what the fuck was going on. And then at the end, they're like, oh, yes, he had to get someone to fall in love with him. And lest the rose wilt. It wasn't a rose, I don't think. But it was the same. I was like, you're fucking telling me this whole time this has been a Beauty and the Beast retelling? I'm going to hop off a cliff. Are you kidding?
Dude, yeah, I will say, the number,
I hate it.
there are so many.
It's so many.
I think that's the thing too is, and I do remember, because I enjoyed ACOTAR, like the series, but I remember for book one, I didn't see that coming either, and then I started putting two together of like, oh, she's stuck in the castle, blah blah blah, or in the house, and then you start putting two together, and you're like, wait a minute, but yeah, there's so many right now, so
yeah.
What about, have you guys read Cinder?
I was just gonna say I did like Cinder.
I did like Cinder.
Cinder's because it's like
it's like sci-fi.
Sci-fi,
like a sci-fi,
type thing.
It was different enough, but I still don't think it needed to be Cinderella based. Like, if you really take that part out of it, it still could have been. It still could have another worked.
Example.
What?
Have you guys seen Warm Bodies?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not a fairy tale. It's based on Romeo and Juliet, and it's a vampire. It's not vampires. It's a zombies. It's a zombie apocalyptic movie, and it's one of my favorite movies of all time, and I love it, and I actually liked it. That one's based on Romeo and Juliet.
It's like a really goofy. It's like almost rom-com kind of vibes. Like, it's kind of making fun of itself.
It's funny, yeah.
But see, I think that's different. If it's like making fun of itself, right? If it's like somewhat ironic or something, like, and I think with Cinder too, like, I would even push back and say that I almost like that one is a retelling, but it's because of how many there are out there that then the rest of them just get annoying. So I agree.
I didn't mind that one. I did DNF the second book though, because I thought it was boring.
I never read the second
book either.
Yeah.
But
I was like,
first one was cool though.
I was so obsessed with Cinder, and then I started reading the second book, and I was like, oh, I'm over it. But I will say, Romeo and Juliet, I don't really get tired of that one. I like that one. That seems easy enough for people to like pull off that, like, it doesn't feel tacky, you know? Like, the structure I think just works really well, whereas like Cinderella is so specific and so weird with like the shoe that, like, I just feel like I can see them pulling at the string so hard to get it to make sense and to fit into their plot that I'm like, it doesn't need to be there. Like, if it doesn't fit naturally, don't do it, girl. Like,
well, because I think with the genre too, right? Because of like with fairy tale retellings, you're, I think, pretty, well, I shouldn't say are limited, but most of the time limited to fantasy, maybe sci-fi, right? Versus like Romeo and Juliet, that kind of like star-crossed lover thing is more of like a trope too that can bend to different genres and stuff too. So it's
more overarching.
You know, so I also love Romeo and Juliet, and I like even the more like the straight up obvious ones too, like the Romeo and Juliet movies and stuff, like the one with Leo DiCaprio and everything. Love it in all its weirdness.
I love that one too.
I do too. I'm a big fan. But yeah, I agree. No more fairy tale retellings. We're putting a pause on that.
That's why it's an honorable mention. Cinder saved it because I was like, I did like that one, but literally I got one toe. I got one toe in the circle. If I read one more bad one that's just forced in there for no reason, it may be the end. So.
Fair enough.
All right.
Also, did you guys hear my stomach growl a minute ago?
No.
Okay,
my husband too.
I thought that wasn't in the pod. It growled so loud, and I was like, if this is on the pod, we need to cut that out. Anyway.
Love it.
The girls are hungry.
Sorry.
The girls are
Yeah,
hungry. No, you're good. All right. So my last one, I already did my honorable mention because it made sense. We were talking about all the wild dialogue stuff. So my last one that I had is no chemistry for romance, or again, rephrasing as like just these characters that don't make sense together for a romance. They don't vibe that well. They just don't have the chemistry. I put maybe hot take Bryce and Hunt from Crescent City. We've talked about it. I don't get them as an item. Like that just does not hit for me. There's been a bunch of other ones that I'm not a big fan of. I'm sure I could name, but anything insta lovey, we've talked about that. Unless it's done well, there can be exceptions, but just generally, if the couple is a big part of the story and they just don't make sense, I'm like,
yeah.
Well, then
if
whatever.
Their only reason for being together is that this one is like the female main character and this one's the male main character, like I'm out. That's why I think a lot of the times I root for the like secondary male character and the female main character getting together, because a lot of the times that relationship, for whatever reason, is built out more emotionally than the surface level two main characters relationship, because like they're usually like, he's hot and mysterious and I'm into it, and they're like, oh, you get me, like you're always there for me, you support me, like kind of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we saw that. We talked about with One Dark Window, like kind of joking, but also seriously. I'm gonna forget the guy's name, but the brother or cousin, whatever
Raven.
he was.
Oh,
Ravens, not him, but the other one.
Oh.
I've seen.
What was his
Do you know
name?
what I'm talking about?
The other
You know how I'm talking about.
Yeah. They had banter.
I've seen people.
They had, a little bit of,
I've seen people say that of like Lucian from Akatar and stuff as well. So just that side character that is very supportive, is caring. There could be tension there if they ever
like the
if they ever built
character.
upon it.
Yeah.
There's more personality there sometimes. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
I guess Kaylee is disturbed because she cannot remember that guy's name. I see it on her face. She's so mad at herself.
I know.
I want to remember it so bad.
It's okay.
I know. I can like see it in my head.
Worry,
I know who it is, but
I keep wanting to say William, but it's not that. But
no,
I feel like
it's
it starts with
short.
a C.
It's fine.
I'm about to find out. Hang on.
Oh,
we can do
insert Jeopardy music.
Elm.
Did not start with a C.
Oh, trees.
Oh, trees. Oh, trees. Yeah. I ship it,
We ship it.
Yeah. So that was my last one. That one can be a killer for me.
Yes,
for sure.
that was everybody's.
Yeah, that's it. So if everyone has said their piece, that is all the tea that we have on DNFs. Do not let yourself be guilted into having to finish a book that you hate. Respect your own time, okay?
So true.
Your podcast mothers
Retweet.
here approve. The panel approves. DNF that book. It's okay. Now that I have that off my chest. Next time, we're going to be spilling the tea on Book Lovers by Emily Henry. We're forcing Kaylee to enter the romance genre in honor of Valentine's Day. We're going to be also moving to bi-weekly episodes so that we have more time to create content for you that's better and more consistent. So please check that episode out on February 18th. You can also stay up to date with the latest tea on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube by following us at Spill the Novel Tea on all of the things. And while you're there, please let us know, what book did you DNF that other people finished? And what is your top red flag for something DNFable? What can you not see past? We need to know. And also so I can add it to my DNF list. To my not TBR. Anyways, we will see ya next time.